Hello everyone, I'm Marty Pospisil and welcome to my October 2023 market update. I just returned back from a wonderful trip in Spain doing the El Camino and of course visiting my daughter in Paris, so I am nicely refreshed. And I've gathered all the data together to give you guys a nice snapshot of where we are in our market today. So and I'll point out, this is my newest addition to my shirt collection from my favorite store, Cotton Dew in Paris. And if you look closely, there's a bunch of little houses on here, which I thought was kind of cool. So had to buy it. If you're ever in Paris, please visit that store. It's awesome. So, let's get back on track. Let's look at the data that I have collected, what's happened over the last month. It's quite interesting, actually. If you're looking at the sales activity year over year for detached houses in Greater Vancouver, the activity is actually up about 7% from this time last year. The benchmark price is up just under 6%. And last month, for the first time in a while, we've had just a marginal price drop in detached houses in Greater Vancouver. We'll explain what's happening. Duplexes, half duplexes, townhomes, etc. That attached market activity is way up from last year, about 30%. The benchmark price is also up 5.3%. And also a very slight decline in pricing from last month. Interestingly enough, apartment condos up 11% year over year, prices up 5.8% year over year, and a 0.2% drop. It almost seems like we've hit that cresting of the pricing for all the product in Greater Vancouver, and those high interest rates, which we'll talk about a little bit as well, which you're reading about and hearing about all the time on the media, are having an impact now on our market. We're starting to see that the prices cap out, but still have been holding pretty steady. So let's look in particular at what's hot and what's not in our area. Of course, as you recall, I use the sales ratio to determine how active our market is. If the sales ratio or the absorption rate is greater than 21% of the product selling in a given month, we're in a seller's market. It's balanced if it's between 12 and 20%. And if it is less than 11%, we've entered into a buyer's market. So that's what I'm using to track how active our market is. And let's look at the specific product and see. Now, so if we pop into detached houses, west side, we saw over summer we were at 12%. Last month we had 13%. This month it's dropped down to 10%. So we've just entered a buyer's market for detached houses west side. We're seeing that in activity for the listings that we have and other listings on the MLS. A little bit slower moving, but there's still buyers out there buying. They're looking at good value. The mortgage-rich buyers are having a little bit of difficulty with that anticipation of the rates jumping. There are some pre-approved buyers out there who are still taking advantage of that. So we're in a bit of a window with this particular product to take advantage of if you're selling. Condos and townhomes west side. Over the summer, we were very active, 27-28% in September. Now we are down to 19%. So we've dropped from a seller's market down to a balanced market. We just dipped below that 21% for condos and townhomes. Vancouver west side, still a very respectable absorption rate for that type of product. So we're seeing that type of product move. We're still getting some multiple offers on the ones that we're selling. And if we go down to condos, townhomes downtown, we were sort of in the middle of that balanced market, 17 up to 19% in September. Right now for downtown, it's dipped down to 12%. So downtown got very quiet. We had a few properties recently we sold downtown. We could see that in that activity. Had to work very hard get a lot of marketing out, really work with the buyer's agents to get offers on those. But we're at 12%, still in a balanced market by 1%. And let's pop over to the east side now. And houses in the east side, we were just shy of a seller's market over the summer, down 19%. Right now, that's dropped down to 14% for detached houses on the east side of Vancouver. So that's right in the middle there of a balanced market. So price is holding steady there. It's not favoring the buyers or the sellers for that product. If we're looking for condos, townhomes on the east side, we had a very heated summer, 35% August, end of September, 37%. Right now, it's dropped down to 23%. We're still in a seller's market for that product at 23%. So it's one of the most active products, condos, townhomes on the east side. It's kind of an affordability curve. We're seeing more people at the less expensive product. Again, that's an influence from the high interest rates that we're seeing. So what's happening in the burbs? If we look at all of the greater Vancouver and lower mainland area, you can see the sales ratios that are in red have all dropped. So activity dropped in the majority of the suburbs. Even further out, we had a couple of areas where the prices jumped up a little in Richmond, or the activity, the sales ratio, and in North Delta, Port Coquitlam, and North Vancouver, interestingly enough. That's all for detached. If we look at attached monthly variances, you can see predominantly red around the lower mainland, except for West Vancouver and Cloverdale and Abbotsford. So you can see that overall slowing of the market is kind of everywhere. It's not just isolated to Vancouver itself. So what's happening with prices? You saw that sort of peak in my table. Prices just marginally dipping below what we saw the previous month. Here's the historical average price graph for Greater Vancouver, and you can kind of see that peak that we kind of hit in pricing, and then it's dropped down now, and you can see townhomes kind of leveling off and condos leveling off for Greater Vancouver. And the forecast, everybody's asking. This is what makes things a little bit difficult, because there's so many irons in the fire. There's a lot of stuff happening that's influencing our market. But again, if we look at the drivers on my color coding system, green for market enhancers and dark red for market price deterrents, one thing that's still keeping those prices up is the low inventory. There's just not a lot of product available for people to buy, and the old supply and demand, if you keep that supply low and the demand is constant, which is tapering a little bit, prices will remain stable. And that's why we've had those pretty good prices over the last 6 months, even though the interest rates have gone up. So that's a bright green. Consumer confidence is fading a little bit. I'll show you a couple of clips later. There's talk about this recession, the housing bubble, Everybody's making forecasts now. Our market's very resilient in Vancouver, so can't say whether all that's going to happen, but there's a lot of forecasting pointing that way. And of course, Tiff Macklem back east is also saying, hey, inflation's gone up. Be careful, October 25th, it looks like we may get another increase. So people are a little nervous. The buyers are nervous. You can see that in our listings. People like the product, want to offer. They're a little bit shy of being in multiple offer situations, but we are still getting them. So I've changed that from a green to kind of a beigey color. It's not a market enhancer anymore. People are right on the fence. Dark red, we've got cost of borrowing, okay? So mortgage rates and I've done a mortgage rate forecast with all the data that we have, are of course high now, and it looks like they might continue to increase with inflation being up there, and we'll talk about why that is. So that's a market deterrent, and of course that's related to inflation. But the economy's slowing down, so all these things are out of whack. We got inflation going up, the economy slowing down, mortgage rates are going to climb because of inflation, etc. And we'll talk about why that is. So consumer confidence, I should actually change her to a thumbs down. People are starting to shop less because those credit card bills, those mortgage payments, the cost for gas, all of those things have been high for a while. And there has been a little bit of light when the inflation dipped, but now it's back up. Why is that? We'll talk a little bit about that, but there's retail sales. Unemployment rate is still very good. If we're looking for British Columbia, we are at 5.2. Nationally, we're at 5.5%. So still fairly manageable unemployment rate. You can see COVID, how that impacted us, but we're still, like, if you're looking, over the last 10 years, we're right where we should be in unemployment. That might change if we do hit that recession, of course. So there's Tiff, my buddy Tiff back east. He's reacting to that inflation rate that went up to 4%. And that, of course, has jumped up here. The main reason for that is the crude oil prices jumped up. And of course, I got a notification from my CTV News app that said there was a $5 drop in crude oil yesterday. So something's going on. And that might, of course, impact what the Fed does on October 25th, I believe it is, for the next rate announcement. And down south, the Fed is at 3.67 for their inflation rate. So that mainly has been due, from what I've been reading, due to the crude oil prices, but there's been a recent dip. So again, hard to say what our friend's going to do on October 25th. We'll see. He might raise it 25 basis points. He might not. So that's kind of interesting to see what happens there. That will certainly impact us. Rental rates, as an aside, we're seeing those continue to increase. There's a very low vacancy rate. There's high demand for rentals. So the rental rates have, of course, continued to go up, and inflation is impacting those as well. So the cost of borrowing, we are pretty high on the variable rates, as you know. And our 5-year rates are high. We're hovering around 5%. That could increase if there's 2 more increases in the overnight rate from the Bank of Canada, say 25 basis points each. We could see that rate go up to 5.5%. And people are feeling the impact. Anyone who's renewing their mortgages is finding that rude awakening. Anyone who's been riding a variable rate is really having to cut corners on making those increased mortgage payments because of the high rates right now. So it is starting to have a dramatic impact on people, and that will hopefully get that inflation in control. And hopefully, if they raise the rates, it's not going to throw us into a deep recession, which some forecasters are talking about. So this is interesting. So I've graphed the forecast now of the revised mortgage rate outlook. And as you can see, I'm predominantly looking at the variable rate here. You can see we're anticipating that to take a little bit of an increase now over the next few months. It's going to hold level through spring of next year and summer of next year, and we may not see a drop until August of next year, when that market starts to, or when the Bank of Canada might decide to start lowering the rates. It's a crapshoot. Nobody really knows. Here's where we stand right now. The previous forecast was for rates to fall early next year. Doesn't look like that's going to happen right now because of all the factors we're looking at. And the economists are split, of course, in the mortgage forecasting. It's very difficult now to forecast mortgage rates because of what's happening. Now, if you do have a mortgage that's coming up for renewal in the next year, it's a really good time to do a mortgage review and plan how to weather the storm, because you've got a kind of an 18-month window now where you might be exposed to these higher rates. So talk to your bank, talk to your mortgage specialist, and find out if and when you are renewing, what are your new payments going to look like? What are your options? What should you be looking at in order to weather that storm until the rates do start to recover? So that's something you might want to consider doing. Inventory levels, of course, That's the one thing that's been holding pretty steady. If we're looking at houses west side, you can see this red line. There has not been a dramatic increase in inventory. That figure should be quite a bit higher. Normally, we're not seeing a lot of product out there, and that's the same with attached product. You can see it's gone up a little bit, but not a lot. So there's not enough product for people to buy. Inventory is staying low. So what's next for prices? Well, there's all sorts of things in the news. I saw this particular clip the other night on CTV, I believe it was, where they're talking about this big housing bubble that's about to burst because of the income versus debt level that we're holding in Canada. They interviewed a couple of people there. It was quite interesting. And then, of course, Bloomberg is making their own predictions. Same idea. So you're seeing a fair amount of negativity on the news and in the media about where we're going. I believe it was World Bank talked about a global recession that's coming next year. So, of course, that's impacting the consumers, and the consumer confidence is a little bit shaken with all of that. So, in summary, inflation has climbed and is climbing again, mainly due to oil, which just dropped. The economy is actually getting less active. It's still a little bit active now. They're trying to control that. Bank of Canada on October 25th is going to make a big decision whether or not to raise the rates again. Mortgage rates could very likely climb. That's the forecast into 2024. And this could plunge us into a recession, resulting in layoffs. And in turn, that will ultimately result in some price drops. So be prepared for a bumpy road as we head into 2024. There's a bit of sun, bit of cloud, could be a rain, could be a hailstorm, we don't know. And 2024 could be a year where we see some price adjustments downwards if we do enter into that recession. So again, as I said earlier, our market's quite resilient. Vancouver's a pretty special place. We're very strong here. We have a lot of equity-rich owners. So how heavy will we be impacted? How will the buyers respond? All of these things will depend on the confidence of the consumer and the motivation of the sellers. So there's a lot of things that will determine where we go, but it's looking like there's a little bit of bad weather coming, and we might want to bear that in mind with our planning for real estate. Now, on the fun page, let's lighten this up a little bit. I just got back from hiking the El Camino del Norte in northern Spain. Absolutely beautiful. If you're ever planning to do it, let me know. I'll tell you where we were. This is just coming out of Liendo, just before coming down to Laredo Beach. It was beautiful sunrise. Kind of looks like a Hawaii shot, but this is indeed northern Spain. We had loads of fun there. This is just around the corner before we get to Santander. Santander's just over here in Spain, and some beautiful outlooks, that hike along the ocean. Quite strenuous. There's a lot of climbing up and down, but a beautiful, beautiful country, a lot of fun. We flew out of Paris, and I'm going to show you one shot of Paris, and that is this pastry. Check that out. Every block has a patisserie in it, and beautiful fresh bagels. And look at this, fresh berries on this. I could eat that whole thing, maybe twice. Thought I'd leave you with that great shot. That is my market update for October 2023. You can watch this on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And of course, we'll have the Apple Podcast available on Spotify as well, and Google Podcasts. So we're on all the platforms. If you want to watch this or pass it on to someone you know, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Happy to, getting lots of questions now. I want you to please let me know, and I'm happy to get back to any of you and bring any of you up to date and talk about your specific situation in real estate. Love doing that. Come and meet with you. A big enjoyment on my part doing all of the planning with all of you. So thanks for watching. It looks like we're going to get 3 days of sun. So get out there and enjoy it here in Vancouver. I appreciate you joining me today. I'm Marty Pospisil. Take care, Vancouver.